Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day wherever you may be. Wonderful evening, wonderful morning. I appreciate you guys being here today. We're going to talk charts. We're going to talk a few notable news items and anything else that comes to mind here today, but mostly going to be an update on these markets. So we'll look at Bitcoin. We'll look at a handful of other names that I'm watching here, some things I've made a list for, and then I will certainly leave time to go ahead and do some chart reviews with you guys. And so appreciate everybody being here. It's been an interesting week to say the least with, we kicked off the week going into May 7th. The SEC was going to have a big announcement, and then that kind of was a little bit of a dud, non-event, didn't really happen. But nonetheless, you got to watch the charts. Ultimately, I myself, when I'm doing just trading, I mean, you factor in the news a little bit, but at the end of the day, everything's priced in to some extent, right? The sentiment, the anticipation, and certainly, big announcements absolutely drive price. But at the end of the day, you take it with a grain of salt whenever you hear any kind of noise along those lines. And there was more than that. There was the old money crowd, Mr. Buffett, Mr. Gates, Charlie Munger, all those guys back talking on Bitcoin, but that's nothing new. We've been seeing that, so that's going to continue, and it's just not going to go away, and for a lot of reasons, right? One, they don't like Bitcoin, they don't like the technology, they don't view it as a viable investment. There's no balance sheet, doesn't produce anything, on and on and on. But you can say that for a lot of commodities, doesn't mean it's not a viable investment. And of course, there are some bigger issues, or not issues, but bigger threats when you talk about the potential disruption that blockchain tech brings, and not just to financial institutions, but to a lot of power centers that rely on trust in middlemen and authorities. And when you have something that's programmable, and you have smart contracts, beyond Bitcoin, but ETH and some of these other blockchain platforms that, they're going to be very disruptive. You look at what's happening with the STO, right? The security tokenization of real world assets. Just think about what that's going to do to like things like real estate, right? When you may not need those intermediaries anymore. You may not need title companies or certain things like that, or you will need them to a smaller extent. And so that's just going to be interesting where things go here. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the charts, and we'll get, let me go through some quick news items here first that I'm watching. And thank you guys for those like buttons, and for the few of you that hit the thumbs down before the live stream even started. Oh, you guys are hilarious. Can't feed the trolls, but just interesting. Glad to have you either way. So some interesting news items here. So we saw here recently in the news, the ICE, if you want to pronounce it that way, the Intercontinental Exchange, which is a parent company of the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange, was talking about a platform for trading Bitcoin. And what makes this interesting, what makes this better than some of the previous alternatives to big money trading, is the fact that this will not settle in cash, or won't be a derivative based on an index or something along those lines, but this is going to truly be holding Bitcoin in the back end, right? It'll be truly backed by Bitcoin. So that's very significant in terms of the potential. We're already seeing a lot of money on the OTC side, but this is just crazy that they're going to be backing this by Bitcoin, and it's good, right? And do they add other coins? Do they start once we get past this whole regulatory ambiguity, before all of this stuff? I mean, this is going to be interesting to see how this goes. So I'm just so bullish when it comes to the institutional money that's going to be driving the next wave. I've been talking about that here for a couple of weeks. That's going to be one of the big catalysts for the next wave higher, going into the rest of 2018 and into 19. It's going to be the amount of institutional money, and ultimately the amount of quote unquote traditional investors that start coming into the space, because there's going to be vehicles that are going to make it a lot easier to do that. Because a lot of folks, let's be honest, they don't want to go and open up an exchange account on Binance or on some of these other platforms that you and I are used to using now. They want to be able to just do it from existing investment accounts. And so I believe we'll continue to see vehicles created to make that a lot easier to do. But ultimately, that's happening. First, it's going to be the big money, the institutional crowd that's coming. And there's a lot of infrastructure being put in place to allow for big institutional players to start stepping into this space. Next, Zappo. I believe I'm pronouncing that right, but they reportedly hold $10 billion worth of Bitcoin, roughly 7% of the global supply, which amounts to, about 1.1 million Bitcoin. That is a lot of Bitcoin. That's way more than the Mt. Gox trustee has. But that's incredible. What makes this incredible is not so much the size. That's a huge number in and of itself. But what makes it incredible is the fact that this company hasn't really been around that long, relatively speaking. And there are a lot of money, a lot of big money, apparently, wanting to hold that large amount of Bitcoin. So this was interesting. I remember first reading about this, and I'd suggest you guys go check it out. It's pretty interesting. But they converted an old bunker into basically this super security cold storage facility where the way there's nothing connected to the broader internet, and the way they hold the private keys and the way they transfer it, it's like you're safeguarding the most sensitive information in the world, which is the private keys here. And it's just pretty cool to see that. But they have multiple locations. That Swiss bunker was one of the first ones, but I would definitely go check it out. But just the fact that they're holding that much is pretty significant. I mean, it's not one entity that controls or that owns all of those Bitcoin, but just, wow, that's a lot of Bitcoin being safeguarded by one company. And then finally, Tom Lee just continues to make the rounds in the news. So he is talking about the potential bump that we're seeing in, following the consensus. And so that's going to happen here next week. We have consensus in New York happening. And traditionally, as he goes to say, there's been a bump following consensus. Now, granted, the range was all over the place. And I think some of the news outlets kind of took a little liberty with what he was saying, and they basically said, "Oh, Tom Lee said that Bitcoin's going to new highs after consensus," and he didn't come out and just say that. So there's a little bit of playing with the headlines there, and I think a lot of folks are reading the headlines and saying, "Oh, Tom Lee's crazy. He's saying Bitcoin's going to this after consensus," and he didn't exactly say that. So I would recommend reading into what he did say, and he was just saying, "Hey, we've had this bump. The biggest bump came a few years ago." And then some people just kind of took that and extrapolated the number and said, well, if that happens, it's going to go to 70,000 or something. And we know that that's not going to happen, but there could be a rally, a post-consensus rally. What I've seen in the past, though, especially last year, consensus was kind of like a short-term peak enthusiasm, going into that end of May. And then we saw that pullback going into June and July. But, that was, in the big picture, it was a small pullback. But post-consensus, there was a little bit of a pause, a post-excitement pullback, if you will. And I would not be surprised to see that happen again. And at the end of the day, I don't think consensus is going to be a huge swing one way or the other for Bitcoin. But the thing to pay attention to are some of the smaller names, some of the altcoins, because that's going to really be what consensus could move, right? If there's partnership announcements, and no doubt there will be announcements, and there's going to be projects being announced. There's going to be changes to projects. There's going to be a lot of that stuff, in the smaller names. And that's really going to be what I'm going to be paying attention to. And not so much what does consensus mean for Bitcoin or what does it mean for ETH, as much as it's going to impact some of the smaller names. And so that's going to be the ones to keep an eye on. One of the names that I'm watching in terms of potential news or announcements out of consensus are some of the what do you call it? Not the promoters, but some of the I'm losing the word there. The folks that are paying for the advertisement and stuff. So Arc, VeChain, Quantum, right? Some of the big names that are there. So keep an eye on those guys. They're going to get a lot of exposure. Arc's probably the top of my list there in terms of a potential rally post consensus, and also because of the way the chart looks. So I'll be checking that out here with you guys in a few. Sponsors. Thank you for that. I'm trying to talk and trying to read an article at the same time and trying to think of what I'm saying. Thank you. But the sponsors. And at the end of the day, man, those sponsorships are expensive. Most of those projects, the ROI is usually not there for the sponsorships. The amount of money that they spend to get some of that is it's incredible. And it's not just at consensus, although it's probably one of the most expensive ones. But some of the other blockchain events, the sponsorships are just way out there. But anyway, interesting news items for the day. So let's take a look at the charts here. And so I want to talk Bitcoin first, of course. So if you caught my video yesterday, I was talking about BTC. We've been in this channel downtrend, pretty classic kind of stair-stepping your way lower, right? You have these intermediate bear flags that form. They're just a little bit of a relief rallies. You can see that happening there along the way down. And, just kind of basically runs right into that moving average. Then we see bigger volume, then another rally, and then bigger volume. But ultimately, you hit a little point of selling exhaustion and you get a higher low starts to form. And that's the first step. So that's what I was looking for. As I mentioned yesterday, the first level to be watching was that psychological 9K zone. And that's really where the rally kind of paused, or not the rally, the pullback paused here. And if you go to the 1 hour chart, you can see yesterday, we came down to around 9,050. This is on GDAX, and it will vary a little bit by some exchanges. We rallied, we pulled back again to that point, and it looked like we were about to start moving higher. Then we undercut that slightly with a lot of volume, and that was kind of the signal. We were starting to hit some oversold conditions here. You can see on the 1 hour, there was a slight bullish divergence there. As we came there, we undercut here. So slight bullish divergence, and now sure enough, we had a pretty decent rally that took us over 9,300. And then I was looking for this pause pullback, the dip on the 1 hour to kind of reset things a little bit here. But the fact that we broke out of this parallel channel that we've been in for the last 3 days is the first step. It's very positive, and so that was good. I would have liked to see volume come in a little bit stronger here. So admittedly, it's not exactly the strongest buy volume that you've seen in recent days. So it would have been nice to see like a huge move out of this, but nonetheless, it's back above the 10 EMA. And so what I was hoping to see was not a stronger, but a little bit deeper of a dip, into the 91.50 zone or something, and then a move higher. But this could certainly continue. The fact that it's kind of just holding and going sideways is also positive. You can see on the 1 hour, we've pulled back a little bit. And now we're starting to rally off of that $9,200 mark. So that's good, very positive to see it. It's starting to change the pattern here, right? So we've had this series of lower highs with a new low coming in, and now we have this new high here with the higher low. So it's starting to change the pattern. That's good. So where does this lead to going forward, right? 9,000 was the first support level to be watching. Below that, 8,800 was the level I was watching. That was also the 382 fib retracement level, so would have made sense to see that level tested. But if we rally here, there's a couple of levels to watch here on the upside. Now, there's a lot of people talking about this potential head and shoulder pattern that's forming, and that's absolutely a valid probability that could happen here. And so let me kind of outline that here for those that are not aware of that. Here, there's, you can call this the left shoulder here, you can call this the left shoulder here, but I'm going to go with this one first. And you can say that we could be forming a potential head and shoulder pattern with a rally into 9,600 or so, and the neckline being basically this $9,000 mark. And so does this hold any water, right? Is there any credence to this pattern? And certainly that's the thing to watch here over the next few days. It's interesting to note that on this recent pullback, if you do a retracement on the bounce, the 618 level lines up pretty well with the $9,600 target. And so that's going to be interesting to see that if this 9K bottom here was the low for this route, this pullback, and we start to bounce the 618 target, 95.75 to 9,600, it's going to be the kind of the first big resistance level. And if it starts to roll over pretty good on that with some decent sell volume, then that's going to be a potential head and shoulder forming. And so what I'd be looking out for is on the way up, what does the volume look like? If the volume is starting to get weaker as it rises, generally not a good sign. So that's going to be the thing to look out for over the next few days. But we take it one day at a time here. So for now, I'm just looking at this as a potential good low. I expect we're going to see some more upside rally there and some upside testing. But this is going to be the first real big test, this 95. Near term resistance obviously is going to be around 94.50 or so, which was kind of the big wall we had here yesterday. But then above that, around 9,600, and that's going to be the test. If it just kind of starts to teeter out around there, get cautious, not necessarily a sell signal, but that's going to be the pattern to be looking for. So on the daily chart, that's it. It's not unusual, guys, to see this pullback. I know we've had this very strong, almost month-long rally, and we're seeing 3 days of pullback, about 10% correction, and it feels like, oh man, this bear market, it's a bear market now, it's the end of the world. It's like this is kind of normal, guys, and this is actually very healthy in the big picture because it just sustains the move much better when you have these tests of support, when you have these big pullbacks, and just kind of these higher lows being set along the way. So I have no issues with the way the action's playing out here. It's still looking pretty good here. Now, let's take a big picture look before I go to the other charts here. So on the weekly, right, I've been talking about, hey, this was a good double bottom that was formed. We had that first extreme low in February, and then we had this nice rounded bottom that formed. We started to rally. We did break the downtrend that was in place here for multiple weeks. We've had 4 or 5 weeks, green weeks in a row. This is the first red week if it finishes this way. But the other thing to look at is if we do pull back, let's say we form that head and shoulder pattern and we pulled back, then what you're going to be looking for is a higher weekly low around 8K. And there's several other people looking for that 8K as a potential, okay, that's the confirmation. We've hit the bottom and we're moving higher now. The alternative is if we blow up past 12K, and that will also be the confirmation there. So, we're kind of in that middle zone there. The chart's certainly starting to narrow. And so a pullback here on the weekly would be healthy. Obviously, it needs to be contained at that higher level, but wouldn't be the end of the world. And in fact, I think it'd be a good opportunity to add to some longer term holds. So that's going to be it on the BTC side. Let me catch up with some of these comments here, and I will start going through some of the charts that I'm watching beyond Bitcoin here. So thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate that. Let me see here. Okay, you guys scared me there. I was like, you're only seeing my logo, but it looks like everyone else can see it. Okay, so that's good. I wasn't just talking for nothing, and I don't have to do that all over again. I didn't talk about any other charts yet, so if you're asking about some of the other charts, I have not covered anything beyond Bitcoin yet. So we will certainly get to that here. And so here's what's on my list, and let me get through the list first, and then I will start looking through some of the names that you guys want to cover here. So I've got EOS, high performance blockchain on KuCoin, ARK, BQX, ELF, BNB, Ripple, OMG, Monero, Trace, Poly, Waves, Walton, VeChain, Verge, and Aeon. And then so we'll go from there. And I will cover some of the other ones, some of the big names that I typically cover. So I will get to ETH, Litecoin, Neo, Bitcoin Cash, and some of these other ones too. But I want to cover kind of some of the other names that I don't talk about a whole lot. Yeah, proof of authority token, definitely one to look at here. And we'll go from there. So it's going to be a little bit of the smaller cap names today. So got to mix it up a little bit, guys. So let's get to it here real quick. So EOS, first of all, the chart that I'm looking at is the EOS USD pair. And so look at how tight that's sitting. If we zoom out a little bit here, you can see that EOS had that breakout to new highs on the USD pair above $16. Pretty good rally up to $22, $23. And since then, it's just been consolidating. Volume on this consolidation is starting to really quiet up, which is good. You can see the RSI here is pulled back. It was definitely overheated, needed to pause. And the fact that this pause hasn't just been this deep pullback, but it's kind of just sitting tight is very interesting. So got to keep an eye on this one. The support is still basically that $16 mark, but it's just letting this moving average catch up. I'd be looking for some upside confirmation on this. And so on the upside, a break above $19 would ultimately do it. But a close out of this range above $18, $19 or so is really what I'm watching. But very interesting pattern to be watching here on EOS. Let me go to ARK. I've been talking about ARK here for a little bit. I'll go to not ARK USD. Let me sorry about that. Where is it here? ARK Bitcoin on Bittrex. And so just zooming out the very, very big picture, right? The weeklies, which I usually don't talk weekly charts here, but taking a look at the weekly, how narrow this is getting, it's getting very tight. I like this pattern here. We did rally up into that trend line again, and that's exactly where resistance was met, and it rejected from there. But here we are pulling back. And so going to the daily chart here, this pullback has been constructive. We're starting to see a lot of support come in. You see these long wicks here down at the lows. But I've got this highlighted here. This is ultimately the level that I want to see cleared on a closing basis on this daily chart, and it will start to signal that, hey, maybe we're going to take another attempt at this trend line, and a break above that trend line would be significant. So that's what I'm watching here. Does that correspond with, with consensus? Does it correspond with any kind of, they're doing some project updates here and all that. So maybe, right? Maybe that's the catalyst. But either way, definitely want to be watching here over the next couple of weeks. BQX. So has seen two very strong days, tons of volume coming in. Finally had a breakout here. You can see the resistance that it was trying to test right around here. We had this pullback for about a week, and then just very strong action in 2 days, just totally erased all of that red, and it just very strong. It is extended here near term, so I've been watching this one for a little bit of a pullback, but just look at how many 4-hour bars in a row that is. It certainly was getting extended here on the shorter term time frames. Let me clear this line here. You can see on the 1 hour, right, the RSI was just kind of living up there as it marched higher, but very strong, one of the strongest names here as of late. ELF here, very nice big volume move off the lows. I'm liking this pullback right to the breakout point on quieting volume. So one to definitely watch right here is trying to hold this support. If you go to the 4-hour chart, you can see this is a nice little pop with some very strong volume. And it's just a normal pullback on lower and lower volume right to the moving average, also the breakout point. So a pretty good move off the low, maybe signifying that, hey, that's the low for this pullback, and we're going to start to move higher. If you go to the daily charts, it did undercut that 10 EMA and hasn't been able to rally right above it, but I'm really liking the way the 1 hour and the 4 hour are setting up here at these lows. So ELF is looking pretty good here. Binance Coin was strong here today. A little bit of a double bottom type action on this BTC pair. And so you can see we had this first low, which was kind of the handle that I was looking for a few weeks back. We rallied, looked like it was going to start going again, and then pulled right back and basically right to that point here. And today we saw some pretty decent volume come in off of that low. If you go to the 4-hour chart here, it is pausing a little bit, which is good, and we needed that a little bit. So I'm liking this. Definitely want to keep an eye on, but has been pretty strong off of that move. If you go to the BNB USD pair, see that this was setting up a nice ascending base here, and it just pulled below that trend line, and this move today is getting it right back up there. So let's see if that can recover, but I'm liking the way the BTC pair is looking right here. Ripple. So Ripple, let me go Ripple BTC here on Bitfinex. And so why Ripple? And so what I was watching on Ripple here is the fact that it's really trying to hold this low point here, right? It's kind of are we done pulling back here on the 4-hour chart? You can see that hitting some oversold conditions here. So no buy signals yet, but it's trying to hold this little bit of a support level. So maybe at a low. So one to keep an eye on, but it certainly needs to reverse. It was looking pretty good back here a few days ago before the big sell-off happened, really testing this resistance. I was watching it for a breakout, but it pulled right back. Now it's a little bit oversold, so definitely want to keep an eye on. Another one that I'm liking from a at support type of level here is Monero. And so if you go to Monero, you can see this level that it's right above right now has been a long time support level. We had a strong rally off that move, and here we have fully retraced this move. And so it's going to be real interesting to see if this holds right here and if we start to build another base right at this level. So watch Monero here. This was a strong rally off the low. Unfortunately, just gave it all up. So it's going to be interesting to see here. I know some of that is, fork driven and some other news there, but at the end of the day, this is a key support level must hold on Monero. Let me switch over here before I keep going. I'll do some of the KuCoin names. So I talked about high performance blockchain on KuCoin, hit my radar earlier today. It's right at resistance here. So if you go to the chart here, let me go to the daily on this guy here. You can see that this has had a pretty decent move today, but it's basically run right up to the same place that it's been trying to get above here for some time. So this is the level to be watching on this move here. But on the hourly, as you can see, it's had a pretty decent move. Smaller volume, smaller cap names, so a lot choppier, definitely not as clean of a looking chart as some of the others, but I'd be watching kind of the bigger picture of the daily charts, see if we can clear that level there. Polymath was another one that was very strong here and moving after, last week it was pretty good, had that big move, pulled right back on the daily to the 10 EMA, and here we are today bouncing higher. If you go to the 4-hour chart, you can see that candle there was pretty strong. Now this is on KuCoin. Bittrex has a lot more volume now on this name. So if you go to the Bittrex chart, you can see that the candle on the volume there is a little bit stronger. But I'm looking at the KuCoin pair because this rally that we saw here last week took it right to a key support level here. And you can see that that's where the rally stopped. We saw the pullback. And so now I'm looking at that same level as a potential test, a breakout. And above that, you can see a pretty decent rally to here or even to the new high level. So keep an eye on Poly. It's getting a little bit of attention just because of the whole security token talk that's kind of making the news here lately. And Poly is one of those names that could potentially benefit from that. Let's see here. Some of the other names on KuCoin before I get going. The Trace token here. This is a supply chain name. Just very steady. You can see a lot of accumulation along the way up. I've just kind of been marching higher, so I'd be watching this one here. And it's basically right at the, basically making new highs here. So, what we've seen in the past is once things break into new high territory, they can really start to accelerate. At that point, there's not a lot of overhead resistance. And so this one has had a nice several weeks of just rally, very steady climbing off of the lows. Let me see. I'm going through my list. I think that's the last of the KuCoin names that I was looking at. So I'll hop back over to there. So, okay, let me see. So next on my list was OMG. Just this one I've been watching here just because it's been so choppy, very, very interesting. It's a project I like long-term, just kind of watching this here, but just a lot of volume coming in here. So I'm looking at this as a potential, is this low done here? And more importantly, what I'm watching on the near term, at least for trading purposes for myself, is a potential double bottom being formed here on this 4-hour chart. You can see that there, another test of this low. You're not going to get confirmation of this double bottom until it clears here. And it tried earlier today and is pulling right back. So one to keep an eye on here. It's definitely trying to form a little bit of a low here in the near term. Let me see. We covered Monero. Let's look at waves. So looking at waves, again, another potential double bottom showing up here on this chart with a bullish divergence on that RSI. And so I'm liking that. And it's right there. It's like right at resistance, trying to clear this here. So that's going to be the level to be watching on waves here in the near term. But looking pretty good here overall, trying to find a low here. Some volumes coming in here on this daily. But a break above that resistance is also getting it back above the 10 EMA on that daily after, about a week and a half of pulling in here. Walton. So looking at Walton here, the daily is showing some strength here, but you can see on the most recent to move lower. And a lot of these names are kind of putting in similar patterns, right? You get this double bottom with the lower right bottom there with some pretty good volume on that 4-hour bar. And here they are just kind of pulling right back. So a lot of these are looking really good from a potential secondary entry point and then a rally higher. And again, they're I don't want to say they're failing, but they're pausing right at the neckline of these moves. So a pullback and then a rally higher would certainly start to confirm a lot of these double bottom patterns that I'm seeing here. But Walton's setting one up there too, so that one's looking pretty good. V-Chain, one going into next week that I'm keeping an eye on here, just sitting really tight, really quiet here. You can see in this most recent couple of days here just how narrow this chart's getting here on the 4 hours. So I definitely would be watching V-Chain here. On the daily, it's still looking pretty good here. It's been pretty strong as of late anyway. So just one of the better charts out there right now. Didn't see as big of a pullback as a lot of these other names did. So keep an eye on V-Chain here, just kind of sitting tight, kind of consolidating this move here, but it's looking pretty good all around. Verge. You guys remember Verge? Was that one coin, you know, that was really pumping not too long ago and had some news and sold off? Well, I'm watching it here, seeing, you know, it's had that big pullback, and just since then it's been really trying to pause and settle out here. But as of late, you're seeing a little bit of accumulation starting to come in here, some volume starting to show up. You can see it here on the 1 hour chart, you know, these little pumps, they're trying to start pushing the price higher, and it's just slowly starting to climb, stair-step its way up. And it's right at a little bit of a resistance level. So this is going to be a significant breakout level here if we can see another strong move higher, and maybe you get a bit of a counter trend rally on Verge. And Aeon, a project I've been watching here. So if you go to the daily chart, you know, this was moving here in anticipation of some of the events they were having in Toronto, talking about their project, you know, their testnet and blockchain going live here. But we've seen a pretty decent pullback on this name here. So I'm looking at this more from a, is it oversold type of scenario here, right? You're seeing this bounce here. So look for a break of this downtrend, a little bit of a reversal. It is feeling a little bit oversold here in the near term on this 4 hour. So at least I'd expect a little bit of a counter trend rally on this guy here. And, you know, the level to watch here is a retest of this first resistance, or, you know, halfway up on this bounce. But one to keep an eye on here. A lot of these, it's not smaller cap, it's kind of a more of a mid cap name, but you'd be surprised they can rally up pretty quickly on a move higher. WAN Chain had this nice breakout and is pulled right back, so I'm keeping an eye on here to see if it holds the support. It's held it twice already, and you can see we had this pullback earlier in the week, we rallied, and then here yesterday undercut it, quickly got right back above it. So this is going to be a key level to be watching here to see if that's the low, see if we can hold that support. But ultimately, I want to see a break of this downtrend. I've got an alert set on this guy to see if we can get a reversal here. This one was one that has been so strong as of late. It was definitely a little bit overdone, so it's not surprising to see some pausing finally here. We'll see if this is the level that it wants to finally hold at. Let's do a quick fib on that. You know, it's pretty close to the 382 level, and so that might make sense that support level is the area that it holds at. Proof of Authority Network, breaking out into new high ground. This is a smaller cap name here, so this is I'm going to say 300 million maybe. Let me pull that up. I don't have them all memorized, you know, I used to. Let's see what we got here. 175, so smaller than I expected here. So it's a smaller cap name, has plenty of room to run. Just has been slowly setting up these bases. They're stepping higher. We had another little consolidation here with the pullback in Bitcoin, and now that it looks like Bitcoin has found a near-term low, very strong action on this guy, moving strongly out of this range here. So want to definitely keep an eye on there. Okay, so that was my relatively short list here today. A few names I wanted to throw out and share with you guys. So let's move quickly here. I'm going to try to cycle through some of your names, and we'll go from there. What time is it here? So I plan on keeping this live stream to about an hour. So maybe another 20, 25 minutes, give or take. So let me cycle through the list here, the comments, and start jotting some of these down. So not too fast. So we'll do Cardano here. Looks like Cardano's on the list. Icon, absolutely. Let me see here. Neo. Let's do the biggies. ETH, Litecoin, Bcash, or excuse me, Bitcoin Cash. Bitcash, new name. Let me see. We did ELF already. We did OMG. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We'll do QuantStamp. It was a name I was in yesterday. Got shook out, unfortunately. Ontology. Let's take a look at that guy. And let me kind of cherry pick a few names here. Zill. Got to look at Zill, just on a tear. Zero X. Yeah, let's take a look at that one. All right. Okay, let me go through a few of these names here. I've got another 10 that I jotted down here very quickly, so let's get going. Cardano. Let me go to the Binance chart on that guy here. So Cardano, first on the daily charts, and we've seen this pretty decent little bit of a pullback showing up here on the 4-hour chart. Maybe it's found a low, hitting this little bit of a oversold condition right as it approaches this prior breakout point here. You can see where the volume started to come in a few weeks back, and we have fully retraced that entire move. And so here we are, just undercutting that slightly, but ultimately it's got to break this downtrend. It's got to be convincing. I want to see some volume come back in, and so that's what I'm going to be looking for here. But it is sitting pretty quiet here on this little bit of a bounce. This 4-hour, when I see these bounces with smaller and smaller volumes, usually not a strong sign. You want to see one of these strong reversals higher with some pretty good volume. So this is kind of a key level to be holding on Cardano. It needs to hold that level. Let me do a quick fib analysis on this to see how far this is pulled back from that pivot point there. So it's kind of right at the 382, sitting right at that base. So it would make sense to see a little bit of a rally from here, especially considering it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of pullback, basically. Icon, man, Icon was looking so good yesterday. I've been watching Icon here for a couple of days. I was watching this daily chart, and it was waiting for this daily chart to stop pulling, this little pullback here to turn around. And there was also another pattern I was watching here. So if you go to the 4-hour chart, where is it here? Let me go to the 1-hour. I might show it a little bit easier. But there was a pretty good inverted head and shoulder pattern here forming with this little bit of a right shoulder right here, and your neckline being there. And then yesterday just breaks out with some pretty decent volume coming in, and was looking strong, was looking nice, and just totally reversed very quickly and gave it all up and some. And now the pattern has really turned, in the near term at least, has really turned ugly. I mean, just you kind of almost have like the opposite happening here with this right shoulder forming, and it's just starting to break below this neckline. And so it's kind of showing a little bit more weakness here on the 1-hour. And so I really want to see that turn around. For now, I'm going to just wait it out. It was a failed attempt to break this downtrend. It rallied above that 10 EMA on the daily and then just quickly gave it up. And now we're below yesterday's low. So unless this reverses quickly here in the next, hour and 20 minutes, it's just not going to finish very strong. So I'm going to have to wait on this one a little bit. Neo. Let's do Neo Dollar here first. Another name that's kind of rolling over here a little bit. So just, I don't like to see these rounded tops. It's one thing to see a strong move and then like a bull flag type of action, but this is kind of a little curl over here. Now, I wouldn't say the good news, but one of the positives that I'm watching here is the fact that a lot of these names that have pulled back for the last week or so is the RSI on the 4-hour is certainly nearing some oversold conditions. So looking for a little bit of a counter trend rally at least on some of these names, but this one's got to break the broader, not broader, the most recent little bit of a downtrend that it's in, and a lot of them are pretty close here. But let's look at the BNB or the BTC chart on Neo. I guess there is a Neo BNB pair too, but we'll look at the BTC chart on this guy here, and you can see the pullback here has been even more pronounced when looking at the Bitcoin side. So that's ultimately what I'm watching here. It's got to clear this little downtrend that it's been in. It's just very steady, just rallies right into that resistance, the downtrend line, and until that changes, you just got to wait out, in my opinion. Now, if you're holding it, it's come right back to a support level. And so this is really the level to be watching here. You can see we had a couple of good days of support followed by a very strong move higher. Unfortunately, that move didn't see any follow through, and here we are just fully retracing that. And so this is the key level to be holding here in near term. Ethereum, all over the place here lately, just with some of the news, but all in all, this daily chart just still looks very good. I mean, Ethereum didn't pull back. ETH didn't have as strong of a pullback as, say, Bitcoin did. So relatively speaking, this is held up pretty good. It's still above this little base that it broke out of. The pullback has maintained above the 10 EMA on the daily. So, I mean, all in all, just very strong. I mean, just not bad at all. You can see this double bottom that it formed here didn't have as deep of a second leg on that pullback. So showing some good relative strength overall on this guy here. So versus BTC, you can see here it's just sitting tight. So I'd be watching for a move higher out of this little range that it's in here right now. It's getting pretty narrow, so I expect we'll see one way or the other, in the next, couple hours to, certainly in the next, by tomorrow, right, in the next day. So that's what I'd be watching here on this guy. And it looks like it might want to start moving higher. Litecoin never going to start outperforming. Looked like it was trying to here. It was looking pretty good for a couple of days and then just pulled right back. I was really liking the way Litecoin was setting up here. It broke out of that range that it was in very briefly. Look at the volume that came in on this move higher. Just very strong volume. It was in this little range that it was in. Let me move it back here, right? So this prior support has just been a strong resistance zone for all of April and now going into May. We saw this very strong move higher a couple days ago. I was thinking that's it. We're going to probably break out. We tested it twice, and with the sell-off that started, this pulled right back in. So ultimately, that's going to be the level to be watching. And until then, it's just kind of tracking the Bitcoin. This has been relatively sideways, and it's just not outperforming. Ethereum is definitely stronger of the bunch right here. Bitcoin Cash. But looking at the USD pair, again, another name that has held up relatively well, showing some good relative strength on this pullback. You can see this 3 days of pause still maintained above this prior base, holding above this moving average was enough to let the RSI cool off a little bit because this was a little bit extended here near term. So all in all, a very healthy pause on Bitcoin Cash and looking like it wants to get moving again here. You can see today has been a relatively strong day on the upside here with some pretty good volume coming in. So not too bad there. If you look at BCH on the BTC pair, already breaking that downtrend and looking like it wants to start get going again. So pretty good here. Let's see. QuantStamp. You were looking so good. What happened here? And so QuantStamp was just marching along nicely for a couple of weeks, just looking very good here. Had a pretty good breakout a few days ago. Now, granted, this was on some Palm Beach news there. You can see the volume that was associated with that announcement, and then just kind of started to consolidate here. And I was liking this pause that it was putting in. It was a little bit of an equilibrium pattern forming here, a little bit of a bull pennant following that move. And then it just broke down and then just has been stair-stepping its way lower since then, unfortunately. So not following through there yet. Now, in the big picture, it's still forming a higher low. So I guess you could say that, if this holds, it's not all bad. But just don't like the fact that this breakout was a little bit of a failed breakout here. So unless this reverses here pretty quickly, I'd be cautious on this one now. It's just starting to break that trend that it's been in for a couple of weeks. And it's pretty good accumulation there. Ontology. Sitting tight. Very nice chart here on the daily. So don't forget about this one. It's just, it's right there when it comes to breaking into new high territory on a closing basis. Just the prior high right there on the closing basis. We've had these wicks of overshooting it, but this is getting real tight. It's letting this moving average catch up. So all in all, just a very good looking chart from a big picture. The selling volume here has been pretty quiet, so not a lot of distribution happening here at the highs. Going to the 4-hour charts, this is just getting very narrow. So I'd be watching this guy here. Just very much range bound, but a break above this, 10.2K Satoshi or so is really going to be the kind of the early signal that this guy wants to get going again. ZIL is never going to go down ever again. That's it. It's just going straight up, straight to the moon. So looking at the daily chart, no, look at the weekly chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. Was that about 250% or something on this move? Yeah, 248% up in about 5 weeks. And so very nice, breaks into the $1 billion club, and just has been super strong on the tear. Just gives you these little brief pullbacks, and it just continues to be one that outperformed. Now, would I be buying? Most of you guys that have been following me already know the answer to that. You guys know I don't chase names, so something that's up that much and RSI is just way extended, I'd be waiting for a new base or a pause or a pullback, or this was kind of your opportunity there, on the hourly. So if you're looking at those, you look for these pauses, these pullbacks. You definitely don't buy when things are just that extended. Not saying sell it. It's not necessarily that, but it's just I'm always hesitant to chase those type of names like that. 0x. 0x too was another name that was like, this one's never going to go back down ever again, but just was trying to break out to new highs. But all in all, still looking pretty good. You can see the daily just has been on an acceleration here. And this yellow line that I have marked here is the prior closing highs. And it did close above that yesterday. And so far it's holding. And it's just, it's still looking pretty good. But I would caution here near the highs in the last couple of days, we've seen a little bit of divergence here on this RSI as this one tries to make new highs. So just tells me that it's maybe taking a breather here, trying to pause a little bit. But from a volume pattern perspective, that's telling a different story. This has just been very strong. The accumulation signs are there with these big green volume bars. Very little selling showing up. Considering it's at the highs, that's a good sign. And so ideally, we get a little bit of a base, a little bit of a pause here, and then it just takes out the highs and goes into new high territory. But it's a project I like long term. It's just definitely has had a very good run. I mean, look at how far we've come on this name. Do you guys remember this day here? That was Coinbase adds ERC20 token support here, and this was the CNBC. Coinbase is going to make an announcement, and those are just such wild moves. And just in retrospect, that's way down there now on the charts. So good to see that 0x has had a very nice move over the last couple of weeks here. Let's do Walton here. Yeah, I've been watching Walton. Another name that I was keeping an eye on here, forming a little bit of a double bottom. You can see here. Oh, actually, we did cover Walton, didn't we? Yeah, we did. So this is one that I already covered just here. Just double bottom. That's your neckline to be watching here. This looks like a good secondary entry point, in my opinion. So let me see here. I think we've covered them all. All right. And with 8 minutes to spare. Let me see. I'm going to take a swig while I catch up on some of these comments here. Thanks for being here, everybody. Hit that like button. What's a good master node to invest in? Man, that's a tough question. Ideally, the master nodes, you want to get in like on the coin before they announce that they're going to be a master node. Oh, Q-Link. Let's talk Q-Link. But there's a few sites dedicated to showing you the master node ROIs and all that fun stuff. I think Dash still has the highest ROI at this point. I could be wrong. Q-Link. So looking at this guy here, was trying to form a pretty good low yesterday, kind of rallying off. I mean, this is a young chart, right? So it has a lot of upside potential, in my opinion. We saw this rally take it right to the prior highs. That's where the rally has paused. It's pulling in right here. If you go to the 4-hour chart here, though, what I do like about this is it's trying to form a little bit of a low. And so I'm watching this here, but ultimately, I want to see some confirmation to the upside. Can it take out this recent resistance that it's been fighting here over the last couple of days? Volume here at the lows has been pretty good, but I'd be waiting. I'm just going to wait for this thing to turn around here. What's the smaller cap name? $46 million. But the fact that it trades almost $9 million USD, it's pretty good. It makes it tradable for me, at least. Some of those smaller cap names that don't have volume is just really tough to do anything with. So what's up with that stupid SEC FUD? That's unfortunately never going to go away until there's like some official law or some official decree. Now, they've already come out and said they don't see ETH as a security. They're absolutely going to continue to crack down on ICOs that are not following their rules and selling unlicensed securities and all that fun stuff. And so that's not going to go away. But what I've seen is industry has already responded to that. So most, not all, but most ICOs are already abiding by that. They're following Regulation D standards. They're either not letting U.S. investors participate at all, or they're saying you have to be accredited or an institution or a fund, et cetera. And so we're already seeing that. There's always those projects that are not doing it, and whether you agree with it or not, and I don't. You guys know where I stand. I think that's a load of what, but they're just following those. And the ones that are not, you're seeing, whether it's a state regulator or the SEC, you're seeing them crack down on some of that marketing of unregistered securities. But FUD is here to stay, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to go away. But I mean, we can't call it all FUD. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just, it doesn't matter what market you're trading or anything. I mean, whether you're trading stocks or commodities, or I mean, there's always going to be some sort of news, some sort of regulation, some sort of geopolitical something or other, economic something, right? That's driving the news. It's driving the markets, and that's just crypto is not an exception. It's going to have that aspect to it. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have done pretty good here. Let's see, Decred. I'm going to move quickly here, a few more minutes. And yeah, Decred's looking pretty good here. Man, I was watching this a couple of days back, and it just continues to sit tight here on this daily. Let me go to the daily chart here. So, wow. Yeah, I definitely want to keep an eye on for sure. It's been off my radar. I was watching this back here, but it just continues to sit tight and looking pretty good, looking like it wants to blow above that resistance here. There's a few of those smaller names that have been looking pretty good. We saw Aragon here kind of move out of range and just kind of sitting tight here. Very, low volume names, but want to keep an eye on here. Augur was moving here. Where's Augur BTC here? Had a pretty good breakout. It's another name that I was watching, but they're just smaller cap type of names, but definitely getting some action here. It doesn't take a lot of volume to drive those, which is why you see such big moves here. Oyster Pearl, yeah, Pearl was actually on my radar earlier. Came up on my alerts system here, and you can see popping up here off of the lows. Pretty good action off the lows with some decent volume coming in here. If you go to the 4-hour chart, you can see just the last several bars has been very strong, and so not a bad move. It looks like it finally has found a little bit of a low and it's turning the corner there. Siren token, that one's already gone in my opinion. Let me see here. Oh no, this was a few days ago. It was looking pretty good. Nice little bit of a pullback here on this guy. Yeah, not bad. I know. So I don't know what you guys think about this project. So if you're not familiar with this, it's kind of a hardware play where they're going to make a crypto phone and a crypto computer and kind of their own thing. I think the idea is great, right? But I'm all for, hey, let's challenge the two big names that are out there. But the hardware space, the mobile handheld space, I mean, just tremendously competitive and very hard to succeed in, crypto or not, blockchain based or not. I don't know if they can pull it off. I hate to say that. I want them to, but I'm just not sure they could long term. But we'll see. So they're going to release some hardware and whatnot, but that's what this token is. But nonetheless, from the chart perspective, had a nice rally a few days ago, pulling back here. So this could be a good secondary entry point. Substratum. Do a few more guys, and then we're basically at time, and I will hold to that. So we'll keep going. I was like 4 minutes late, so I'll go over. I'll go over a little bit here. But sub was looking pretty good here up until this little bit of a pullback. I think I mentioned this in my last live stream. I said I didn't like that big volume reversal near the highs. I would likely see some more pause pullback. So far, we're seeing that, and until this trend changes, I'm going to get cautious on that. But like so many of these names, they're starting to hit a little bit of a low here, a little bit of an oversold condition. So maybe we see a counter trend rally at least. Awesome. You've been with me for a year and a half, man. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the feedback, guys. There are a few of you guys that have been with me since the $60 and $50 days. And that's when I started posting videos, mainly because it's an interesting story. Like, I never had done anything with YouTube before. I was always trading and just doing my own thing. And I was looking out for some technical analysis crypto videos. And most of the ones back then were just really bad. I was like, what? And so I said, there's a need to be filled here, so I'm gonna do it. Since then, especially in the last few months, we've definitely have seen an influx of a lot of crypto TA guys and gals join the space. But back then, it was slim pickings, man. You saw my first post on Steemit. That's awesome. Admittedly, I'm not too active on Steemit. I mean, I will post some of my videos and stuff. I should probably be a little bit more active on there and respond to comments and questions. But it's just it's tough. I'm not making excuses, but it's tough to manage kind of your trading book, as well as content creation, as well as Twitter and YouTube and Steemit and all this fun stuff. But it's good, and I appreciate you guys being here. And I do read your comments, even if I don't respond to them all or do all that. I absolutely read the comments, and I appreciate the feedback, guys. BTC, is it a hold? So let me go back to BTC, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up. The short answer is I think we have found a pretty good intermediate low. So I guess the short answer is yes. But what I'm looking for here is we've broken this trend. We've made a higher low on the 1 hour chart. That's what I was looking for here earlier. We had the rally, we're pulling in, now it's moving higher. Ultimately getting above this near-term resistance would be confirmation around 94.50. And if you missed the beginning of the stream, over the next few days, what I'm going to be watching for here, let me clean this out, is maybe 2 or 3 days of rally. The $9,600 mark is going to be the test. If it starts to fail there, then we could be setting out for a little bit of an inverted head and shoulder pattern, with this 9K low most recently being that neckline. And a break below that won't be the end of the world. You'll see a pullback on the weekly and maybe a week or two of red. But a break below that takes you down to around 8,000 or so, 8,100. And a lot of people are looking at that as, hey, if we make a higher low on the weekly and that is the number, then that's going to kind of confirm that that was the low. But for now, just 1 day at a time. Near term, meaning like today, next couple of days, I expect some more upside testing. But we'll see. I mean, if it takes out the 9K, then 8,800 is the next level of support I'm watching. I gave you some Litecoin to buy. Nice. At $17. That's awesome. I need to come up with my next giveaway, my next contest, so I can give away some more Litecoin, some more Bitcoin. All right. Well, guys, that's going to do it for today. Appreciate you guys joining the live stream here. A good chart review. We mentioned a few names, so I will go through and drop them all into the either in the comments or the description, probably both, just so you guys can catch up and go through those names in the order that I went through them. And until next time, take care, everyone. Have a good day.